Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm Ryan Davis from the Roadhouse band, and Brooklyn Vegan asked me to throw together a genre list of things that I'm into or inspired by this weekend. And I went to bed last night kind of thinking about it and had a whole nother plan for it. But then I woke up this morning, and for whatever reason, I had a distinct desire to listen to this song, Cactus and a Rose by Gary Stewart. First thing is I was making coffee, and then I kind of pivoted and decided I wanted to talk about 1980s country music instead, country records, something that's near and dear to my heart. Gary Stewart specifically is one of my favorite country singers or singers in general of all time. If you're not familiar with him, he had a pretty tragic life, a sort of unfortunate arc to his career, and Jimmy McDonough, who wrote the book Shaky about Neil Young, has sort of like a definitive piece online. You can find it that kind of talks about everything he went through, and but he made some amazing records, and some of his records kind of like veer into this sort of like swaggering, bloated blues rock territory that at times can be elevated and great, but it's not always what I want him to do. And this record kind of steers away from that. It's sort of more ballad leaning. The song Cactus and a Rose, the title track that I was talking about, just got like a really sort of heartbreakingly beautiful chorus. It's like I'm locked into a way of life it can't be had, and it makes me sad. Love can't be had for a cactus and a rose. And then the song We Just Couldn't Make It as Friends is actually maybe the first song on this record I ever heard, and I kind of became obsessed with it and would put it on mixtapes some years back. And I love this one. He had some bigger hits with Out of Hand. It was a record he had come out like probably, I don't know when this one came out, but 1980. So he had some records. He had some bigger records. Out of Hand had some singles like She's Acting Single, I'm Drinking Doubles, and Drinking Thing. And that was probably in the mid 70s. But this one's cool. If you can find it, check it out. What else do we have here? George Strait, another one of my favorites. I really like this record. Does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind? I recently heard just randomly like a week ago that George Strait had more number one hit singles across all the charts than anyone ever of any genre, which kind of blew my mind. Has nothing to do with why I chose this, but that kind of was shocking to hear. But I actually first found out about this record from a song on it, on the B-side, called The Cowboy Rides Away, which I first heard on one of my favorite films ever, one of my favorite horror films / vampire films, Near Dark, which features that song. It also features some really cool Tangerine Dream songs, and it's great. It's Catherine Bigelow, who I'm sure you guys know, and Bill Paxton has a performance of a lifetime in this. But that's how I found out about this record, and there's some other really great songs on it. Some of the ballads are just incredible. You're Dancing This Dance All Wrong, and What Did You Expect Me to Do? Love this record. Lyle, Lovett. This was a really big record for me as a kid. Like my parents really loved this record, and I feel like it was just always on at the house. It was always on in the car. It's not exactly true country in the way that kind of most of this other stuff I'm talking about is. I guess it's more in that sort of like Texas folk western swing thing, like Guy Clark and Nancy Griffith and maybe Lucinda, and some people were doing kind of more of like a crossover thing. And at times, like Lyle isn't someone I revisit a ton. At times, his records get into this more like loungy big band thing with lots of saxophones, and it's not always for me. But something about this record, it might just be a nostalgic thing, but it just really hits close to home. I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I put it on today, and it's still like pretty special record. It's really like the lyrics are pretty smart and funny, and Emmylou Harris sings on a couple tracks. Walk Through the Bottomland, LA County, which I think is probably my favorite song on the record, but it's good. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, so the reason that I knew I wanted to say something else about this, the reason I wanted to pick this as one of my five was I feel like I said, it was just kind of always around growing up. And my parents were fans of country music, especially my mom, and she like when I later came across her record collection, we didn't really have a turntable in the house or anything when I was a kid, but she had stacks of country records, and I knew she was a fan. But for whatever reason, this was just the record that was always on. And even though I wasn't necessarily like obsessed with it as a kid, I feel like it entered into my bloodstream, and I appreciated it more and more the older I got. And when I first started writing my own songs, I feel like this was kind of like a springboard for that in some ways. Next, I pulled one of my favorite records from David Allan Coe. Invictus means unconquered. I think we can all probably objectively agree that David Allan Coe is an insane person, for better or for worse. He's just a wild man, and he has a wild brain, and he kind of lives by his own rules. But this record is awesome. It's got several of the songs are co-written by Shel Silverstein, who we probably, a lot of us, read books by growing up, and there's kind of just like a tenderness throughout it that you can often find on his records, but I think this one, just from start to finish, is maybe one of the most considerate. And I mean, I say that, but also I was looking at this earlier today, and it cracked me up. One of the he's got these weird like dedications after every song on the lyric sheet, where he kind of just says who the song's for, or what it's about or whatever. And one of the better songs on the record is co-written by Guy Clark, Susanna Clark. It's called Ain't It Funny The Way Love Can Do Ya, and it's got the lyrics. And then at the end it says dedication, Deborah Lynn Cole /Co/Cole, married, single, married, July 21st, 1980. Congratulations, the divorce is final today. The day you left, I called Guy Clark. Funny I should be at his house the day I get the call saying the divorce was final. I hope you and Billy T will be happy in the poverty-stricken life you have to live. And I hope this is the last song that will ever be written about or for you. Get well soon, David. And there's our boy having the time of his goddamn life there. But it's honestly a pretty lovely record. And then for whatever reason, at the very end of the record, the final track is called I Love Robbing Banks, throughout which he basically just repeats the phrase, Lord, I love robbing banks, over and over again. I always tell the teller thanks, Lord, I love robbing banks. Like I said, the man does what he pleases, and we love him for it. And then last but certainly not least, this is one of my favorite country records of all time from the 1980s, since that's what we're talking about, but of all time, and really one of my favorite records of all time. I think this is a 10 out of 10 perfect record. Randy Travis, Storms of Life. I mean, it's insane. Like, I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I threw it on today and kind of just got choked up. Like, I mean, it's just so funny and so sad. Like, the lyrics are so good, the hooks are so catchy, and it's like there's not a bad song on it. It starts off with On the Other Hand. Yeah, My Heart Cracked, but It Did Not Break. Digging Up Bones. Insane song. Such a good song. The lyrics of which are just sort of like, yeah, I almost don't have anything to say about this record. It's just, you got to check it out if you don't know it, and I hope you do know it. Yeah, Exhuming Things That's Better Left Alone, Messing With My Mind, The Reasons I Cheat, Heartbreaking Ballad. This is one of the ones for me, from the early 1980s, or when is this one from? Oh no, this is from the mid 80s, yeah, 1986, so the year after I was born. Anyway, that's just a really small little dose of the 1980s country records I've been listening to a lot, and that kind of I was listening to in my car a lot when I was writing this new record, Dancing on the Edge. New Threats in the Soul. We have a new record coming out very soon, and I was listening to a lot of these 80s country records and country records in general while writing it, and while driving down to my family's farm in South Central Kentucky and back, and spending a lot of time just soaking up this kind of music. And that's why I kind of thought it would be more appropriate to share for potential listeners of my music than to highlight my collection of Memphis and Houston rap tapes. Thanks for asking me to do this. It was fun. I could talk about country music all day, and y'all have a good week. Peace.